everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. There they are. Had to wake them up. The ospreys, sometimes they're not as alert as they should be, but we got them going, and so good to have you with us today. I'm John O'Loughlin, and with me is my wife, Marcia Keith. Hello, Marcia.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks you all for joining us here for another Friday live open chat here at
Yes,
McDuff
indeed.
Lives. Well, let's see. We have no comments yet, so it's up to us.
That's right. Well, it's early.
I've been this week coming out with my Undo the Coup campaign. And you've joined in it, actually, and I do appreciate
Indeed.
that. And it's a fascinating subject to try to dig into. There's a lot of reluctance, of course, because to many people, especially those that weren't alive at the time, it seems like something old that's ancient history that doesn't have relevance to today. Whereas to me, I think it's probably the most important event of my lifetime, in which the constitutional government got overthrown, and
Right.
there's a coup still going on, and it never stopped. I've shown how the book Presidential Puppetry by Andy Craig just documents it in spades, and there's a number of ways that you can accept the idea that, yeah, that was a coup d'etat, if you're willing to go there. But I think most people would rather just not. It's just, there's more interesting or more compelling things. I had a nice response on Twitter from one of our, I guess he subscribes to me on Twitter, and he said, for those of us that were not there, it's 2001. It's 9/11 that looks like the coup that needs to be undone, and I sympathize with that.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the younger people, most people, I don't know how many people, 80% of America is younger than us now, I guess, honey. But to me, it's just important that we recognize that it wasn't just the assassination of a person; it was the assassination of a government, because the things that he was doing were objectionable to the forces behind the scenes. So instead of getting a better candidate and running that candidate in the election and getting enough attention to defeat John F. Kennedy, they just blew his head off.
Right.
And, LBJ, I think he knew it was happening, it was coming. But even if he didn't, he certainly had a duty to investigate and to find the truth, which he didn't. So he just let J. Edgar Hoover say, well, it was one man, one lone gunman, one lone nutcase. And the one lone nutcase story, nobody believes it anymore. I don't think anybody does, but they're not willing to take responsibility for what happened next. If you say, oh, wait a minute, the United States, really actually did stop operating on that day, and the things that happened, like expanding the Vietnam War to 500,000 guys, and 10% of them got killed. JFK wouldn't have done that.
No, absolutely not. And I think that you could make the argument that the coup actually started before that, because the conspiracy to get rid of JFK was already in place. The group of people who conspired had already established some kind of a circle. So one could say that the coup was even earlier than that, but I do think that the assassination itself was the first, the first benchmark of that coup. It was the first time that they said, okay, we're going to conspire to take the country in a different direction. And that's what they did.
Well, there was certainly preparations behind the scene. That's how you prove it was a coup.
Right.
The folks that that are associated with the coup intended to do a coup. The intention was there, but I would say that, until you do something like, kill the king in a English scenario, or decapitate the government, which is what they did, to actually take that step, that is the coup. The coup plotters were there.
Right.
I'm just making that distinction, because I think
That's a good distinction. That's important.
if we don't, then everything just kind of slides from this to that to that. It's all looks murky and slimy in the past, but I don't see where there's hope.
Well, I think that there is this tendency for us to believe that the two-party system is working and valid and all of those things.
Yeah.
And that we have this option. If we don't like the group that's in power now, then we're going to bring in a different group, because the perception is that they are a different group. And I think that that is one of the reasons that we are able to look the other way, is because we go, oh, well, look, this is our system. And if we don't like these Democrats in power, we're going to bring in these Republicans. And, oh, wait, these Republicans, look what they did. They had this whole Watergate thing. So we need to bring in some more Democrats again. And, oh, wait, these Democrats, look at how weak they are. And this whole, situation with this Middle Eastern country that most of us have never thought about, called Iran. We don't like how that's being handled. Let's bring in some Republicans again, and so on and so on. And, oh, look, these Republicans, they're trading arms for, I forget what that whole thing was about. And so, and drugs and whatever. And so there's this whatever reason that we're going to switch parties back and forth and back and forth. And that gives us the perception that we have some control over what's happening with our government and who's leading our government, when the fact is they're just two sides of the same coin.
I think you've got it right. But, we can go back to George Washington, who said, don't do that. Don't divide up into political parties. That'll be the end of it, and in a sense it is, because once you've divided into parties, then you have the idea of financing your party, and once you get big money involved, which is totally, all our elections are about money now.
Right.
Once that comes into play, then the will of the people is just, you can't even know, you won't ever know what the people would have decided, were it not for the billions of dollars that we now put into our elections to sway things, or even to change things if we didn't like them, Dominion voting machines.
Right. It gave all the control to those with money and power, because that's how you get power, is by having money. And by leaving the two-party system intact, it is giving the public the illusion that something different is happening, when it's really not. I was thinking about that this morning as I'm reading the news, and I'm thinking the reaction of this so-called secret briefing to Congress about what happened last weekend in Iran, and what they have discovered was, or determined as the extent of the damage. These people walked out of the briefing as if they had attended two different briefings, with the Democrats saying one thing and the Republicans saying another. And I'm thinking, the whole thing is they probably sat in that briefing saying, okay, Democrats, you're going to walk out saying this, and Republicans, you're going to walk out saying that. It's insane, because everything has come down to pitting the D's against the R's, or the blues against the reds, or the left against the right. And we are so focused on that ideology that we're not even paying attention to what's going on.
And it's emotional too. It's Orange Man, that's visceral. If you're a Democrat, and you are like committed to hating Orange Man, which, I think hate is about the right word. If you see what they do with his image, and what they say, they hate him. So once you decide that I hate that guy, then you don't really need to look at the other guy very hard. You could just say, oh, well, I hate him, so I'm voting for this one.
And
or woman, I'm sorry.
Well, we're using guy in a generic term.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Sure.
And that's a new element, I think, to this whole political theater that goes on in this country, because up until now, we have always had leaders that had a certain level of gravitas and leadership, and they spoke very eloquently, and they were very careful in what they said and how they said it. And Trump has been allowed to break from that mold and say crazy things and use F-bombs and make the most ridiculous statements that allow those who suffer from this DTS to look at him like a clown and make fun of him. And he's like, I don't care. That's an entirely new element that is troublesome.
Well, I hope we don't have CRS as well as DTS, because I think you meant to say TDS. Trump derangement syndrome.
What did I say?
You said DTS. And I called you on it. I shouldn't have.
That's okay. No, I was just thinking deranged Trump syndrome, but
oh, okay.
But
right.
no,
well, no, that says it very well. That he's deranged, and so I'm going to be deranged too.
Well, I'm deranged because of Trump, but no, you're right. TDS. Thank you.
Well, it's fascinating to think about all the disparate reactions, but I just want to make one point, and then I want to move on to our good friend Brightmore Dinosaur, who has some comments. And that point is this: from my studies, and I just was looking at one of my earlier minefields. It was about Edward Mandell House and his book, Philip Drew, Administrator. Edward Mandell House was the brains of Woodrow Wilson. He was a Southerner from Texas, Jewish roots. And his father was a blockade runner, and they ran a plantation with slaves. Okay. So he now comes out with this idea in his book, Philip Drew, of, let's do progressive things. His idea led to Hull House and Jane Addams and all of that. And progressivism then turns into modern leftism, that forget about the rich people. We're gonna do whatever we can to lift the fortunes of the oppressed and less fortunate people, and that's the mission of the Democratic Party, and we're all for it. And that's kind of the basis for which I was a Democrat for most of my life, was that, yeah, I mean, who cares about the rich people? We got to do something for the oppressed people. And yes, there was their effects of slavery are still with Black people. And yes, Jim Crow still exists. And yes, all of these horrors are still there. But it all builds upon the policies of these clever, manipulative insiders like Edward Mandell House, to create an opposition that they can then lead. And then, as Lenin said, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it. And that's what we've got. We've got people like Henry Jackson from Washington, of course, the Harriman family, all of these people that are Democrats in name, but they're not for the common people. They're just another shade of working for the behind the scenes empire.
Yes.
And that's what I try to show, is that if we don't undo the coup, and that's my hashtag, I'm hoping will catch on. If we don't undo the JFK coup, then we're still we're back to working for the empire, and we've changed from citizens into serfs.
Yep.
And people are very comfortable serfs right now with your iPhones and your low price of gas, and you know, maybe, take some comfort in the fact that the stock market is doing well and just kick back and say, I'm doing okay. No, our country's not doing okay.
Right.
Our country continues to flirt with disaster as far as the dollar is concerned, and to support evil empires around the world.
Right.
So no, we're not doing well at all. And that's one of the reasons that people went to MAGA, to make America great again. Some people are disillusioned. I'm somewhat disillusioned by, what Trump has been doing. But I also have to say that from my point of view, with the government having been subverted back in 1963 by the coup, that you can't expect Trump to play by the old constitutional rules in order to reverse the trashing of our Constitution by the coup. So when he did the bombing in Iran, it was unconstitutional. If you read the Constitution and the War Powers Resolution, which governs these type of situations, you say no, he didn't have the power to do it. Well, once you recognize that the coup happened, then none of these subsequent, puppets had the power to do what they did. Lyndon Johnson did not have the power to put 500,000 American GIs in Vietnam. He didn't have the power because he wasn't the legitimate president. And everybody after him is also illegitimate. Now, logically, that's not hard to figure out. But to actually get a consensus of American people, well, that's the only way the American people are the only hope of restoring a government of, by, and for the people. That's my soapbox statement for today.
There we go. Well, let's see what Brightmore has to say. Marjorie Taylor Greene just stirred the pot by posting that JFK opposed Israel's nukes before his assassination. Yeah.
She's also come out as one of the standout Republicans that's opposing President Trump's policies with regard to Israel. And I think, Thomas Massey also is, I don't know if you saw what Trump wrote on his Truth Social media, but basically he called Thomas Massey every dirty name in the book. I mean, not dirty name, but just going after him. And now he's set up like a multi-million-dollar PAC in Kentucky to try to unseat him, just because he voted against the big, what's it called? The big beautiful
bill.
The big beautiful bill.
Yeah. Or big beautiful budget bill. Or yeah. Oh my. Well, this whole thing about the nukes, Israel having the nukes. I did not know until I read an article recently about the amount of lying that went on, and how Israel continued to lie to the United States for decades and decades about whether or not they were developing nuclear weapons, and said, no, they're not, and they're using it for peaceful purposes. We never went in and bombed their installments or installations or facilities. And then finally, they admitted it. Yeah, not only were we doing it, not only were we lying, but now we have the nukes. And they're our best friend. Huh? I don't get that. I don't get that at all. Well, but Brightmore goes on to say, media is setting the stage for an Israeli false flag in America. Announcement today about 150 Iranians arrested recently and 1,500 Iranians detained for deportation. Recent announcement of arrests of Russians, Chinese for smuggling specimens, etc., for bioresearch. Okay. Trump is threatening to sue CNN reporter for claiming that Iran's nuclear program was not nearly as damaged as Trump has claimed.
Now that's silly. That is just plain silly. That brings me back to a point I was going to make earlier when you were talking about how Trump is just basically disregarding the formality with which previous presidents had addressed the American people.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I don't think I can include Joe Biden in that because he was brain dead. But
Right.
But other than that, yeah, there was formality. There was a certain attempt to get respect from all the people just because you are the president and acting in a presidential manner. It's partly Trump distinguishing himself from the ordinary run-of-the-mill politician that would do that by saying, "Look, I'm so powerful that I don't even have to abide by formalities like that. I'm just going
Right.
to, and
I don't
also,
have to pretend to be dignified.
and also, yeah, and also to express what he did is he expressed his disgust and anger at Iran and Israel for not making peace.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to express that disgust and anger, the F-bomb is now the best way to express it, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, this whole business of lawsuits, Trump is, or not Trump, but the Trump administration's Justice Department has also just filed suit against every federal judge in the state of Maryland.
I saw that. Yeah. Harry the Greek, our good friend up in Ohio, alerted me to that. And I said, Harry, this Maryland's a Democratic state. It's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, what a crazy thing for the Justice Department to be filing suit against the judiciary. I'm beyond trying to figure that out.
Justice Department is executive branch and judiciary is judicial branch.
I know, but still, there is a connection. There's a relationship, and
it should be.
Yeah, suing the courts it's crazy. It's totally crazy.
Well, it's part of a larger, bigger problem that Trump has had ever since he's tried to change things upon his election, is that he runs into these judges that are Democratic appointed, often, in New York, like New York 2nd District. But, that really do appear to be politically opposed to the president and making judgments not on the law, but upon politics.
But you know what? The courts are our only hope. Because if that's their role, is to make sure that government is run in accordance with the U.S. Constitution.
We had a case come down just yesterday or today from the Supreme Court, which affirmed what you just said. I haven't read it myself, but I saw the headlines.
Are you talking about this one?
Yeah. Supreme Court just upheld Trump's plans to reverse birthright citizenship. Well, setting aside the birthright citizenship argument, which is contentious on its own, the right of Trump to run the executive department, I think, has been the subject. Can a district court judge issue an injunction, nationwide injunction, to stop the enforcement of a rule or regulation promulgated by the Trump administration just because? Why should a district court judge in a limited jurisdiction be able to affect the entire nation's policy and do it over? And they do it over and over again. So if you read the fine print, which I did after I got Harry the Greek's article, what they want to do is to remove those judges, not eliminate the judgeship, but remove the judges and replace them with somebody temporary until there's a new appointment. It is an extremely It's something I don't want to see happen either.
Right.
I'm with you, but I also perceive the fact that Trump's hands are being tied in a way that I think is egregious.
Well, okay, but that's why we have the three branches of government. And right now, I don't think that Trump is behaving as if we do. You know, he is choosing to ignore, as you have
I
noted
agree. I
earlier,
agree with you. Yeah.
not going to Congress about bombing Iran.
Yeah.
He is ignoring the fact that we have a balance of power.
Yeah.
Right now is a huge imbalance.
Yeah. And I saw that there's at least a district court judge that said that the ICE enforcers that go out, and pick up people, and that are supposedly illegal immigrants, can't wear masks covering their faces. And I'm glad to see that. I don't like the idea of masked men with
Sure.
guns going around and grabbing people. I don't care if they're illegal immigrants or not. And I would really a whole lot rather see these illegal immigrants being taken to court and saying, I hereby charge this person with having illegally entered the country and ask the judge for an order to remove him. That's what I think should be done.
Agreed.
Corky's here with us, and he agrees with us on 63. Yeah, I posted a poll this morning just to see what would happen on my X feed, and I think I got about a dozen people to respond to it. I saw that there was like 70 people had seen it, but only about a dozen people responded to it. And what that tells me is that people are just not sure. They don't see how important it is, or at least they don't see why I think it's so important. And so they kind of just stay on the fence, like, I could go this way, I could go that way, but I'm not going to bother because it's all ancient history.
Is it that, or is it that they are unwilling to take a stand? I don't know.
Oh, I don't
Is
know
there a
about
reason
that.
somebody would choose, like, ooh, I'm staying away from that one? I don't know. I don't get that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think since you raised it. I think it's just depression. I think people are just beat down and they don't, they're like, yeah, it would be great if my voice in this government, was effective. It would be great if I felt like I had the rights of citizenship, but I don't.
Well, that's a good point.
And so
That's a very good point.
why should I try to put together Humpty Dumpty again?
I was just this morning talking to a dear friend who is very, very focused on what's going on in the world and very, very passionate about doing something about it. And she said that one of the things that people tell her over and over again is, you can't do anything about it, so just forget about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it. Well, if you can't do anything about it, then you don't really have any constitutional rights. And the stuff they teach you in school about founding fathers and all that stuff, just throw it away because it's completely worthless. If that's your attitude, and I guess I'm getting a little angry now, but
Sure.
I do. I think, come on, you guys, wake up.
Exactly. You do. You want to kind of like slap them or clap loudly or something and go,
Yeah.
wake up, pay attention.
Yeah. So that's, to me, that's the key, is to go back and say, okay, let's really look at Alan Dulles. Come on, guys.
Right.
He was running this thing, and J. Edgar Hoover, come on, he let it happen. He covered up the investigation, and there really was no investigation because Hoover said from on day one, he said we found the killer. It was Lee Harvey Oswald. It was a lone nut gunman, and that's it. No more investigation is necessary. And so, they didn't. But nevertheless, over the past 62 years now, there's plenty of evidence to come out to support a finding by the American people that their government was taken away from them on that day. And it not just, a lone gunman happened to kill one of the presidents, but the succession, line of succession was not damaged. No, it was obliterated.
Yeah, there you go. Good choice of words. Don Lovell.
Thank you.
Miles Mathis undid the JFK coup. Now, I don't know that reference. Do you?
A lot being Hollywood. No, I don't. Miles Mathis. Interesting.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Are you looking it up?
I can, yeah.
Well, I was going to if you didn't.
No, that's all right. Let's see.
Let's see. We got some more comments from. Oh, there's a lot more. We're getting behind, honey.
I know. You and I have so much pent up things to discuss because we, missed last week. All right, Miles Mathis books. I can't find anything quick that tells me who this Miles Mathis is. So maybe Don will tell us.
Yeah.
Trump's spokesperson Levitt said there is evidence that Iran tried to kill Trump. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course they did.
The thing is, when you talk about, Iran tried to kill Trump, well, wait a minute, maybe some Iranians tried to kill Trump, but who were they working for? Were they working for the Ayatollah? Were they working for British intelligence? Were they working for Israel? I mean, we don't know. So the idea of blaming an entire nation for something in the context of today's globalized world, I think is unfair.
But that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Exactly.
We, all the others, we can be as different or diverse or whatever word you want to use as possible. We have different ideologies, we have different whatevers. But other countries, other cultures, they all think as one. They're this unibody. That is what we do. So, America the whore becomes America the mature adult. Victim be gone. That might have been better in context. I'm not entirely clear there either.
Well, I think maybe the way to look at what Corky's saying is that if we do undo the coup, then we become adults again, as opposed to allowing ourselves to be, the neighborhood pincushion.
Interesting. We take back our power.
Yeah. Take back our power.
Yeah.
Victim be gone. Yeah, that's when you say victim, that's politics today. It's all about, who's the victim and how, I don't know. Enough.
So Don Lovell says, hey, Miles Mathis, an artist. Yeah, Camelot, I think. And then Kings of Camelot. Pincushion is right. Okay.
Yeah, so I think I think Corky's put it pretty well, really, because that's what we have to do. We have to quit allowing, these people through their many, many agents inside of our Congress. And I mean, come on, who in the hell does Lindsey Graham really work for,
all of them, every single one of them.
All of them.
What the USA did attacking Iran with bombs was a Pearl Harbor type act of war on our part, in my opinion. They're trying to normalize this type of un-American behavior. Agree with McDuff.
Yep.
Good point. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And, that's the other problem with Trump doing that is that, the next president will say, well, Trump did it, so I'm doing it too.
Right. New York Post headline, are we at risk of an Iranian sleeper cell attack in the U.S.? My bet is on a bioweapon attack attributed to Iran. Interesting. You know what, though? I am a little exhausted of speculation as news. Are we at risk of that speculation? But you see this headline that says sleeper cell attack in the U.S. You think, okay, this is news that there is this sleeper cell. No, it's speculation. are we at risk of? Kind of making me a little crazy because there's a lot of that going on. Has been for a long time. I mean, it's not new. It's just constant, the speculation, but they're presenting it as news. Just tell me the facts. Don't speculate about what's going to happen next. Potential impending Supreme Court case. Parents have sued hospital over collection of newborns' blood spot cards. Lower court upheld right of hospital to use infant blood for research as long as anonymity of blood samples is guaranteed. Kind of reminds me of Henrietta Lacks.
What it brings to my mind is the British just this week have decided to take the DNA samples of every newborn in the National Health Service. If you have a baby in Great Britain at the NHS, then your baby's DNA gets put into the database. And that's what this blood sample is about too. It's about, all these babies. Well, they do a blood sample for whatever reasons, ostensibly to help care for the newborn, but behind the scenes, are they not just collecting data?
Absolutely.
That facilitates their, transhumanist agenda, which I think is that's the other thing, is that people, especially on the Democratic side, they do not want to look at the transhumanist agenda at all. They're just like, oh, that's silly. But it's real.
Absolutely. Whew. Bobby Kennedy's ACIP panel on immunization voted against the use of, I'm not going to say this right, thimerosal, while CDC still maintains its safe use. This is the thing that makes me crazy, is that in this country, we consider it safe until proven otherwise. In other countries, they consider it dangerous until proved not dangerous. So this chemical is used as a preservative in some jabs, but there is controversy about it. Now, not everybody agrees it's controversial, but the fact that some people say it is enough that we should say no until you can prove that it's not dangerous.
Well, I have to take a moment to respond to that myself, because I've been working on that very problem with Adam Finnegan. And if you didn't catch our show yesterday, you should. It's Adam and I were talking about thimerosal and other things that are adjuvants. They call it adjuvants to make the vaccine work better, or perhaps to slip in beyond the blood-brain barrier, which is, an insidious form of adjuvants. And that's what we suspect of aluminum, and thimerosal is a mercury type of it's some compound of mercury. You know how slippery mercury is, right?
And it converts into mercury in the body. Yeah.
Yeah. So and mercury is poison. Anybody that wants to know, is mercury poison? It's poisonous. So, look what happened to, was it Lewis or Clark that took those mercury pills and died from it? They used to do that for intestinal problems. So, that was Dr. Benjamin Rush, and we can go there. But let me get back to where I was. The problem with vaccines is, according to Adam and my own opinion, is not that they put these adjuvants in them. It's that they either contain the spike protein or contain mechanism that causes the body to create the spike protein, the mRNA vaxes. So you end up with these spike proteins, which are the means of creating immune tolerance. So if you now are going to say, well, the problem with vaccines is the aluminum or the mercury or the adjuvants, then then you can solve the problem just like killing a straw man in any argument. You say, well, the problem is the straw man over there. And so you kill the straw man, the mercury, the adjuvant, get rid of that. And all of a sudden, everybody's like calms down and says, oh, okay, fine, we fixed that. But we didn't fix it because they're still putting the jabs into people and in little babies and everybody else. And they're still having their insidious effects. So I think Adam deserves a lot of credit for stepping up and saying, no, look, you can't just look at the aluminum, Bobby Kennedy. You can't, Children's Health Defense, you guys can make a lot of headlines because you got the pulpit and the money to make these headlines. But if you're really doing your job, then you got to look at the spike protein and you got to understand immune tolerance. And if you want to know more about it, just watch the show that we did yesterday. It really is a way to open that door to understanding of the real pernicious nature of these jabs and the things that went before them.
Good point. Good point. You know what? Because it's not that one is, well, that's not true either. It's not that this issue is unimportant.
Right.
It's that this issue masks or detracts from the main issue. I still say you got to have dangerous substances out of our medicine.
Yes.
But let's don't focus on that issue at the expense of ignoring the bigger picture.
Well, thank you so much. That's my wish as well. And I hope that this, if you haven't seen the show yesterday, just watch it. It's an hour long, and I think Adam does a great service in trying to redirect attention back to immune tolerance and the root cause of cancer, Lyme disease, encephalitis, fibromyalgia, all kinds of things.
Yeah, all those autoimmune diseases. Yeah, the immune system. And I think too, there's a lot of people out there, and I need to go back and better understand this, because Adam has said that this autoimmune disorders do stem from immune tolerance.
Yeah, at least some of them. I don't think he said all of them.
And I want to understand that better, because there are a lot of people who think it's two ends of the spectrum. There's the inactive immune system, which is immune tolerance, versus the overactive immune system, which is all these autoimmune diseases. But they are related, and understanding why that is, I'd like to understand that. But that's a sidebar. Let's get back to.
No, I think it's very important. It's a very good way to broaden the discussion, to say, why is it, in both cases, the immune system is going bad. It's either not working at all, or it's overworking. They used the term cytokine storm a few years ago.
Yes, yes.
And that of course, it also can be bad. But I think the cytokine storm aspect of it is part of the broader problem of induced immune tolerance. That's just my reading.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe we need to go back to several Israeli cells inside Iran helped with U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran nuke sites. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Mossad is everywhere. I agree completely.
TikTok has become the bane of the media narrative makers. Gen Z is not going along with Israel's program. I wish I could say I'm seeing that. There's way too many people going along with Israel's program.
However, the New York election recently
Mm-hmm.
it was it Cuomo against Mondavi,
Mm-hmm.
and that was is that for the mayor
Mayor,
for
yeah.
the mayor of New York?
Yeah.
And it's a sound gauge of exactly what you're saying, because Mondavi is Muslim, and Cuomo, of course, has always been one of those Israel rah rah rah, and would never tell the truth about 9/11, never tell the truth about COVID. These guys are part of the conspiracy. Whereas Mandavi, of course, people are scared to death of him because he's going to bring in the Islamists and turn America into a caliphate. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds pretty remote from here, but look what's going on in Europe. Look at Britain, where the huge influx of Muslim people, and there's power behind that. The power of the infiltration of Europe by Muslim people is a political action that disempowers the original people. Well, not original people, but the people that consider, have generations in Britain, or they have generations in France or the Netherlands or anywhere else in Europe, where they're allowing this incredible amount of immigration based upon the idea of human rights. Come on, these people are getting persecuted. They have no place to go. So we're going to put 200 of them in a little town in Ireland. Okay. Well, what does that do to the little town in Ireland?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the little town in Ireland often is usually one of the most welcoming, friendly places that they could have gone to. But there's a limit. There's a limit to hospitality, and I also think that there's a responsibility of the people in the country that they're fleeing from, to reverse the situation that they're fleeing from.
Right. Because, what is our part in that? We're going to come in and destroy your country. We're going to exploit all your natural resources. We're going to mess with your government. We're going to make your whole country unstable so that you can't live there in a manner that respects human rights and the right to, raise a family and have a job and earn a living. But then we're going to close our doors to you leaving that country and coming to ours.
I see that.
Yeah.
But most people don't.
Right.
And the connection that I was trying to make was, well, what are the people in that country? What is their responsibility? They're living under a dictator imposed by the United States. Okay, let's say that it was a dictator imposed by the United States, or the Anglo-American community, and Atlantic Council people, NATO.
Mm-hmm.
But there's how many million people in that country? Are they all of them illiterates? Are they all of them unable to see that their country's been hijacked and maybe they should do something about it themselves?
Good question. What should they do to keep their country a place they want to stay? That's a whole can of worms.
Well, that's what Kennedy was about, was to help them make their country a good
Yes,
place.
he was.
With internal production and internal exploitation of resources, as opposed to sending them all out. It's so clear if you look at things in American history. The exploitation of the colonies that's what it was all about. Let's send some people over to America, let them set some roots in, and then use them to help us extract resources and enrich ourselves. And there came a time when the people decided, no, we're not going to do that for you anymore, British Empire. We're now want to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, but we don't know how. Corky says, thanks for getting my points, John. Wisdom goes to societies based on a population's grasp or lack thereof. Wisdom can undergird Undergird, sorry. Technologies, techniques.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
There she is. Athena, the owl of wisdom.
Interesting rise of ethnically Indian third world politicians in the U.S. What an interesting observation. You know, because I think I've observed it in the medical industry. You know, doctors more and more are Indian and, as Harley says, Southwest Asian. And, you know, but yeah, Brightmore points out also in politics too. Very interesting observation.
Yeah, I mean, having all of our doctors be foreigners is not a good idea to me. You know, it's just it's like, you know, my urologist. He's not American.
He's Jordanian.
Yeah, and so what does that say about that we're letting our medical system basically be controlled by people who do not have loyalty to our Constitution?
That is so interesting. What is the I think that all of a sudden I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking, is there some agenda behind this? And what is the agenda by having these people? But then again, you know, how can we say they're not loyal to our Constitution? I mean, these politicians, they certainly are Americans. Just because somebody isn't European in their heritage doesn't mean that they're not currently American. It's like when we see, you know, Asian people, Chinese or Japanese or Korean, we always start asking, you know, well, where are you from? There's a funny video of a woman going, well, I'm from Denver. No, but where are you from? I'm from Denver. You know, just because they aren't European doesn't mean they're not Americans.
On the other hand, people who hold dual citizenship
that's different.
Should not be
That's
part of
different.
our government. I mean, this is where
Yes, I agree with you completely about that.
somebody replayed a quote, a video of Richard Nixon explaining about the powerful Jewish lobby in the United States in his time.
Mhm.
And what he was saying was that these powerful Jewish leaders believe that the interest of the United States and the interest of the state of Israel are identical in all cases. They just believe that. And this is something that was really started back in the turn of the century with Louis Brandeis and then Felix Frankfurter, and the adoption of principles in our law. For instance, Dean Roscoe Pound changing our law from one that basically respects precedent to one that is willing to change precedent based upon the opinions of various experts. And so, but this whole idea that Israel and America are basically identical is in their hearts. And that's wrong. It's no, we're not identical. We're very
Right.
different. But if you have people, you know, Joe Biden going around saying, I'm a Zionist, you know, everybody, you know, saying, oh, I'm a Zionist, that means that they get a lot of money from AIPAC and they're not going to stop.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you. You know, if you're going to have a loyalty to a foreign country,
Yeah.
that's different. And especially if you're in politics. But ethnic heritage doesn't always mean a loyalty to that country other than whatever European country your ancestors came from. And it doesn't mean that you're a recent immigrant. You know, your family could have been here for generations. I mean, granted, the whole, you know, the influx of Indian people, ethnically Indian people, I think is more recent. You know, there weren't a whole lot of them, you know, at Ellis Island.
But they own all the hotels around here now, don't they?
And donut shops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Jews run all the libraries. I mean, all the laundries. At least that was the.
I thought that was the Chinese.
No, Chinese. That's old news. Then
Oh, wow. I'm so out of date. Are the Ethiopians still all the cab drivers?
Oh, and don't forget the moving companies.
Israeli?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that we experienced when we moved here.
Yeah,
did we.
We still haven't broke that down. And I'm like, I don't want to touch that one.
I know.
Because it's like, you know.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, and that, you know, that's something I did not experience growing up because I lived in so many different places. But, you know, there was mainly living in the South as I did. The main ethnic group besides the black and white was the Hispanic. And, you know, that was viewed differently depending on where you lived in the South. But I came to the Washington area and there are all these different ethnic groups and they all seem to divide up based on, I mean, they divide up the work. You know, the Ethiopians are going to be the cab drivers and the Eritreans also are the cab drivers and the Indians run the hotels and the donut shops and they all.
Yeah.
Corky says, Jews run Mexico.
And Argentina too. Yeah.
Well, that, yes.
Well, no, the president of Mexico is Jewish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Gosh, an hour has gone by. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought we were going to get through all the comments today.
I thought so too. Well, to those of you who we didn't get to, our apologies. I guess it always goes that way.
Well, we appreciate everyone's comments and thoughts and questions. And,
you know, next Friday is the 4th of July.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where's my flag? I'll put all my flags on my hat for the parade.
That's right.
Marcia and I marched we led the parade, the Mystery Island day, June 14th Flag Day. And so all of my little flags, I stuck them to my top hat to celebrate America.
That was fun. That was fun. We were all decked out in our red, white, and blue. We'll have to recreate that for the 4th of July.
Okay. All right. You're on. Remember what we did for Christmas with the reindeer hat and the reindeer ears and everything? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Sounds like fun. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
And thank you, Marcia. Thanks, everyone. We will be back Monday morning with another edition of Undo the Coup. So don't forget, this is my thing now. I want you guys to grasp and hold on to this Undo the Coup. It's the way to freedom in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody.